covered a lot of aspects on the topic of boundaries on this week. So, but there's one burning question that we haven't answered. So this is the first time both of us are on this video. So to me, this is the first time. So I want Pranesh to share a couple of things about himself, just to get an idea of who he is and how well dressed he is. Because you've never seen a better well dressed person on our videos. So please have all this. I please beg the editor to keep this on the final video. So moving on to today's topic. So the question is it fair to expect everyone around you, those around you, including your loved ones or in an office setting or your acquaintances, is it fair to expect everyone around you, those around you, to respect your boundaries at all times? So Pranesh, stage is yours.
So first of all, pleasure joining the both of you. So what is a boundary? I think boundary is defining what you expect in the shared space that you have with another person, right? A relationship itself can be defined as a shared space that you create with one or more people. And I think a boundary is just a rule that you set for how that space exists. And the other people can choose to agree with it or disagree with it. But I think my position is that they should agree with it, because if they are actually interested in the success of the relationship, they would try to make that work. Because if they, I think adhering to a boundary is not about whether um, it doesn't reflect what you think of them, but it reflects upon how you want to set the tone for the space that you share with one or more parties. So I don't think it's fair for other people to not adhere to that rule. Like, let's say you agree to room with 3 other people in an apartment. You create a set of rules. You take out trash at this time. You don't have clutter in some sort of way. You don't do a bunch of things. You do certain things, like you take turns to clear out the trash and whatnot. And I think setting boundaries is no different than that. It is just setting rules and expectations for the shared space that you have created with one or more people. I think it's unrealistic to not adhere to boundaries.
I do disagree, and in fact, I think it's like unrealistic to expect someone to always adhere to the boundaries, because first of all, we're humans, so we make mistakes, and then that comes back to boundaries are not always created with accordance to the other person. For example, some people don't like hugging. They don't want to be hugged. They don't like physical touch as much. And to them, only when you sort of violate the boundary, they say, "Hey, I don't want to do this." And you already crossed the line to sort of understand it. And so to them, your thing sort of makes sense. Hey, don't follow that. But the thing is, the moment you do that, their love language could be physical touch, and they might not be able to express themselves, and also feel like they will feel a bit dejected of you. But anyway, the bigger point I want to say is that like even on a boundary where let's say you both come up with like that, let's say taking the trash out, which Pranesh used, right? Even there, what if you have an exam that day, or you have an interview that day, that or something happened in your family, and things can happen, or even just the fact that you had a
I think
really
you're
tired day
making
because
my
of
point for me,
earlier
though.
day.
Like, you're making my point for me. I a rule doesn't mean it's going to be followed to the T, but I think it's more about setting expectations and rules, just so that there is a context around, like, what is the tone of the space, right? So let's use your example of, okay, let's say I have an exam. That's fine. I'm going to say, I'm sorry. it's messy. I'm going to clean this up as soon as I, feel like I can do it. And that's fine. But as opposed to not having any rules, in which place like no one knows what to expect and everyone behaves in all sort of ways and it gets chaotic.
Or I'm not supporting like no rules versus yes rules. I was fighting for if rules do exist, rules can be broken for the right reasons, and that's what I was fighting for. And like whether it was right reason or wrong reasons is something that should be fought on an event based thing. Anyway, Vyas, why don't you pitch in? Where do you stand?
I think before that, I think Pranesh wanted to say something. Pranesh, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I think that's fair, but I think in that case you don't actually disagree with me. I think we are in agreement in that like you have rules and but you revise them. But my point is that you have rules and that you expect them to follow it as much as possible, right? And there is a consequence to not following it. Like I don't think that's unrealistic. I think we're in agreement. Let's like go through specific situations and see how we all
Yeah,
feel.
let's take 3 examples, like maybe
Yeah,
on a micro scales, and see what happens.
I can think of a couple of I can think of
Yeah,
one
go with
example
it.
off the top of my head.
Go with it.
I so between June to I want to say July or something, I went off the radar basically, just to work on myself, and I think I had cut out a couple of people, and in my view, I was like, I'm setting boundaries because I want to make progress on a few things, and these things are distracting me. That's the boundary I set. Now, I think that that's fine. But what the other people thought was that, like, oh, it wasn't fair to them because they they thought it was rude. Now, rude is just an emotional reaction. I'm not like sure what they actually mean, but that's my take. Like, I think if you need to if you need to like give yourself the space, like you should take it by all costs, even if it looks selfish in that moment, because long term that preserves your relationship, in my view.
There's actually something interesting you bring up, and there's something wrong with like, taking that 2 month break. But you should also be okay with like other people reacting in a way where because they sort of expected you to keep in touch, which is what because that was a standard that was set. That was the reason you went. You were like, yeah, I want to go take a break, and like you have the reasons for you to go on a break, whereas like to them it's not actively affecting them, right? The reason for the break, the fact that you went on the break was the only thing that's actively affecting them. So as valid as it is for you to go on a break, it's also just as valid for them to have like an angry response. Of course, like there are like ranges to it. You can't go and kill the person because you're angry. But of course, it is okay for them to be frustrated that like you had gone on a break, or and plus they might not even know that you're going to come back from the break in 2 months.
I think, okay, what would you say if they weren't particularly engaging in the months prior to that? Like, just a question. Like, how would you think about that?
Okay, I don't get it. Could you like clarify? But
No,
Wait,
as in like, let's say this person, right, that I'm talking about,
yeah,
like they haven't been speaking to me for a few months, despite like
okay.
my reach out to them, and
Hmm.
they're like kind of like absent. So then do I owe do I deserve that emotional reaction then? Like, what do you think?
No, no. It's because like to them, like they for all you know, if they didn't receive, let's say they reached out to you now because they need a favor, right? If they didn't need a favor, for all you know, like they might have not even noticed that you had gone on a break.
That's
So
right.
if that's the case, then like they have no right to be rude because like as much as you need a Like they need a favor from you, you need a favor from them, or, and the favor they're doing you is like giving you some personal space.
Yeah. Who wants to go next with a personal example? I think Vyas, you spoke about like taking like a social media detox. Like how did that
Sorry,
affect?
I missed that. Can you repeat
No, I
that,
said
Pranesh?
I think you spoke about doing a social media detox. Vyas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to just comment on that and how that affected your
Mm,
life
right.
relationships?
Yeah. So the example that I spoke with Pranesh before this video recording was the fact that I was active on Instagram, and I used to post stuff about the books I read, or you know, things that, or just everyday news that impacted me. So I used to take screenshots of like the pages or quotes that I found interesting or impactful, and maybe made a little note and then posted that on my Instagram story. So the thing is, it's kind of, so I was under the impression that maybe it helped people, or maybe I was expecting a response in the initial months, like, hey, would I be able to have a conversation with people on maybe one of these topics? And that may have been a selfish motive in the beginning, and in terms of finding a person to engage with and connect with. But that wasn't to be, and I realized that wasn't my priority. Like, my priority was in terms of, well, what impact can I create after reading that book? And when I measured the time spent on social media versus, well, what can I do better with that time instead of engaging with people on social media, i could literally I could literally see the difference between doing that and, say, speaking with my colleagues at work about these topics. So I could talk to them about this book or this piece of news or whatever I found impactful, and spend 20 minutes talking to one person face to face versus posting 20 stories to 500 people. Like, to me, that is more impactful. And it's
Did
about
that
deciding what's
did that affect any of your like friendships or relationships?
not really. Going off social media did not impact,
Did it
nothing.
surprise
So
people?
it did surprise people, but I so the people who mattered, or the people who understood that why I did that, and I'm still able to have be in touch with them outside of Instagram or Facebook.
Mhm.
So, and so even the conversations, I'm not much of a texter, so I don't like to text much. And even the conversations that I have on Instagram, even, say, let's say it's about this book I read about Malcolm X, or
Mhm.
Obama's autobiography. It doesn't make any sense to have a conversation about that via text. Like, it just takes all the life out of a conversation when it's over a text, on if the topic is heavy. Like, it's
By the
only
way,
about, like,
this is Vyas subtly signaling to us that he wants to be a head of state in the future. He's prepping.
why
He's prepping.
why
Prepping.
head of state, yeah, sure. Okay, yeah, so that's the reason. It doesn't make sense for intellectually intensive conversations to happen on a social media platform. It's not the right place. It's a right place to grab attention. It's a right place for marketing. It's a right place for grabbing eyeballs. But it's the wrong platform, right? So, well, you have Quora and these other, you know,
Mm.
other platforms that you can use for much better impact in terms of those topics. And Quora is just an example. There's millions of other places that you know that have people talking about all these intense topics, and it makes sense. Twitter is more engaging, right, Pranesh, when it comes to, so even the people I know who don't use social media use Twitter for that reason.
Yeah, I think people think we've been tricked into thinking tech is this objective thing. It's not. It is a consumer experience that is a result of subjective decisions made by a bunch of product managers and engineers and designers. Product manager, yeah, right. And Instagram is designed is to appeal to our vanity. Twitter is to appeal to our nature to talk things out. It is the town hall. Like I think in Chennai, where I come from, where I think you
Yeah,
come from,
I'm where I'm living right now,
where you're living
where
right
Akshay
now,
is from. Yeah,
and where
Yes.
Akshay is from.
yeah,
Um, there's a tradition, right, where you go to the tea stall and you talk things out.
Mm.
wait,
It's like your
what is
community,
it?
You go to the tea stall and like you sit sit on the bench and
Oh,
and
you
you
okay.
talk
talk
about
things
stuff.
out.
Yeah,
And I think Twitter represents that, right? And it gets messy, but I think
yeah,
on average, if you know how to use Twitter,
yeah.
to get context about something, it's great. But I
Mm.
think you have to be a little smart about it. But yes,
Mm.
I think that that's an interesting point, that like you made a decision to set a certain boundary, and your friends were like, okay, fine,
Mm. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, it's not gonna create that. So people think they can't live without Instagram. They're gonna miss out on friends. Well, when they do it, they'll realize that it's not that much of a difference.
it
They
doesn't
just
matter at all.
they, they just feel a bit empty that they're not able to spend their time anywhere else.
Yeah,
Like scrolling through those pages, well,
yeah,
there's a void that is being created that will be filled if they put in the time to fill that void with, if they in a much more productive fashion. So what's productive for them is something that they have to decide. So
yeah.
it's just a temporary void that will be filled, and it's not something that you cannot overcome. So, and there's people who
Actually,
go, so it's kind of like addiction, right? So there's people who go on and off detox, on and off social media. They're like, I was off for a year, and then they come back because they still want that adrenaline rush or that feel, and then they come back, that notification feel, and then they come back, stay for 6 months, and then leave. So I'm saying it happens. Like it doesn't have to be strictly off like a teetotaler. So if it works for you, it works for you. If you go on and off, it doesn't
Akshay,
have to be.
why don't you like talk about like an example about boundaries in your life, just so that we can.
I mean, I actually have some thoughts with just social media detox, right? So for example, I don't use I do use social media, but I don't use it the way that it was created for. For example, so I'm actually not on Twitter, I'm not on Instagram, I'm not on a lot of these things. For Facebook, I don't really I don't really write a lot of posts. I don't really use it for communication. I use it more for getting sports news. And then for Snapchat, like most of the time, I use it for sending memes to my friends,
Yeah,
and I use it in a way where it creates uh, a sort of vibe that I'm still in connection with the person because I'm personally sending it to them. I'm not sending it in a group. Sending it to them personally, and in a way, even if they put like lol or whatever, by them doing that, let's say like like a month later, I call them, they would feel like, hey, like I just spoke to this person, even though they probably like knew nothing about my life for the last 1 month. And you know how awkward it gets when when you have to talk to someone like after like a long time, and you don't know what to say because you have no idea what's happening in their life. But honestly, it's not that the awkwardness comes from not knowing what's happening in their life. It's more the fact that like you have like in your head you have no idea who this person is. So how could I talk to them? And what if they ask me these questions? What if they ask me those questions? Whereas in your mind, when you feel like, yeah, I do know this person, and having that effect is something that I try to create with sending these memes, like sending those messages, that when I do want to talk to them, say 1 month later, 2 months later, it doesn't feel as awkward as it probably should. So so social media is as you guys said, it's a consumer spearheaded thing that I understand why it's created for, but if you want to use it in another way, go for it. And and it's and that as long as it's not crossing your boundaries, because if it is crossing your boundaries, for example, with my with at times I share stuff, I share some of the same things to a lot of people. So because of that, if somebody doesn't respond to me for say like let's say I was sending these memes to Pranesh, and when he went to
I was like
so
is he gonna
yeah.
call me out
What
or
happened?
not?
What
I don't
happened?
use
Yeah,
Snapchat.
and then yes, I actually didn't even notice that you had gone on a detox of those 2 months because I was
Ah,
getting responses from other people for these things, and then when you responded, I was like, hey, Pranesh is still responding, and in my head, like I was like, hey, Pranesh is still active with me. I'm still connected with him. I'm still talking to him, and that's what is in my head. I never knew I was not connected with him. And that's the sort of thing where so if I had to call Pranesh and talk to him, I probably would have. And if he had said, "Hey, I'm busy," I was like, "Okay, cool. Like you can be busy, and I'll talk to you later." And I would have been that. And sometimes social
wait,
media
so,
does
so
help.
wait, I have a follow-up question. So, Pranesh, were you responding to his messages while you were doing your detox, like those memes that he sent?
He responded like few other stuff later, but like during those G talks he didn't. But then because I
Okay.
sent it to a lot of people, I used to get responses from other people for those 2 months, and he has sent responses earlier. So like he was always one of the people who he responds when he finds something funny. So I was like, okay, he probably didn't find anything funny in those 2 months. So
Damn it, I've got to find
I
the
never
right joke.
really so I never really took offense to that. And we are still connected now.
So first of all, like Snapchat is not my thing. I use Snapchat like maybe for a total of maybe like if you add up the total time I spend on Snapchat, it's not gonna exceed like 10 days, I think a year. Like
10 days
Yeah.
in a year, right? It's
in a
nothing.
year.
Yeah, in a year. It's like add up all the time. That's the max it can go. It's probably lesser than that.
I mean, one example that you actually used earlier in the question, right? For example, taking out the trash. So, if I say, it's not my responsibility, it's like someone else's responsibility, and I tell them that and they agree to it, it doesn't matter if they didn't take it out for like a week later, I still wouldn't take it out because, it's not my turn yet. And, I would be very petty, very stubborn, and, like the moment you do it, of course, the moment you do it after that, I would do it the next time, whatever, and that's still there. But if it's your turn, like I wouldn't do it because like you accepted that it's your thing, and you knew like what's happening in your life and everything, and you decided to okay, like I can do this. So if you decide like I'm going to respect your opinion, respect your wishes, and allow you to do your task, and like, like I'm not. Of course, I would put pressure. Do it, do it, do it. But like I wouldn't be like, you know what, I'll do it myself. Like that sentimental mom meme. Why would you clean the house at all? And then you're like going out and you're like the mom cleaning it themselves. I won't do that. I'll be like, yeah, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this trash talk is troubling. This trash talk example is troubling. Because wait, for 1 week you have all these worms and insects and buildup of all sorts of nasty stuff.
No, you do cover the.
No, I know, but
baskets.
there's no, but there's
That's
still
great,
got to
though.
be, there's still got to be a breaking point, right? There's got to be a saturation point you reach, after which an unavoidable confrontation ensues. You've got to
I mean,
have
like,
that
don't you think they
confrontation.
would also reach that
I
point?
mean, this guy is like David Attenborough, but except for talking about trash.
Yeah, I love talking about trash because I faced that here. Because I realized in India, it's very different from having trash in America. It's such a
Dude, this
privileged country,
sounds like
even
a
when it comes to.
documentary right now. You're like comparing. You're like in India. It's
Yeah,
sorry, man.
you guys want to keep talking about the trash example. I'm going to talk about the trash example. Because America, US, Australia, Europe is so privileged, even in terms of having trash. Because you don't have many worms build up if you don't take it out for a week. But here, if I leave it out for 2 days, you've got all sorts of flies and worms coming in, even though the place is clean. So I'm just saying there's a situation which can happen.
Are you
Yeah,
saying
bro,
that?
get an insect
Are you
repellent, like,
saying?
and put it next to the trash can.
Are you saying that? Are you saying that Western countries have garbage privilege?
Yeah. Well said. Well done. I see what you did there. Well done. I mean, they had garbage privilege for 4 years. They had garbage privilege for 4 years as president. So yes, they do. So yeah, they're just coming to terms with that now. So that's true.
Oh, you're still here? Well, thanks for getting to the end of the video. Hey, while you're still here, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to get new updates when we post videos. Also, make sure to check out these equally exciting videos as well. Have you pressed it yet? Come on, you have 5 seconds left. 3, 2, press it now.